I'm wearing a t-shirt with a cow on it, decorated, of course. And why is that? Well, I love cows. Don't get me wrong, I am not the enemy of the cow, of which there are 100 million in the United States, probably about 99 million more than we actually need. Now, the cow at Point Reyes has been vilified. But we can't remember that they are actually the unwitting victims of a cruel, unnecessary, and irrelevant form of agriculture that is destroying the planet. And it's not just in Point Reyes, it's all over our public lands. Wherever there are cattle, wildlife is threatened. Now, if you are a wildlife lover, and I believe that so many people out here in this area say, I love wildlife, then why are they continuing to eat meat and drink dairy products? You can't have it both ways. Anytime there is animal agriculture, there is decimation of species. In the last 50 years, we, a human species, has managed to exterminate 2/3 of all wildlife on this planet, mostly for the sake of animal agriculture. We cannot satisfy our appetite for meat and dairy. And as we become a wealthier global world, we will consume more and more and more of it, and we will destroy more and more land. Now, 41% of all land in the United States is allocated to animal agriculture. About 1/3 of it is actually for cattle grazing, a lot of it on public lands like BLM lands, where we not only kill elk and deer, but burros and mustangs and coyotes and wolves. About 100 million animals are killed every single year by U.S. Wildlife Services. So it's not just the National Park Service. The entire U.S. government is dedicated to promoting an economy, subsidizing this industry at the cost of nature, at the cost of human lives, at the cost of this planet. And it's up to us as individuals, as consumers. We have a choice to make. We are driving this economy. Do we want this economy to continue, or do we want it to go in a different direction? It's up to each and every single one of us. We cannot simply wait for the government to do something, because they won't. Now, the last time I was at a protest here in Point Reyes, after the protest, a woman came up to me in Point Reyes. This was in the town of Point Reyes Station. A woman came up to me screaming, a local. She said, there are families out there, and their livelihoods are being threatened by you activists. And indeed, that is true. There are families out there. There are also families that have been working coal mines and oil pipelines and drug cartels and pesticide companies. There are families that are threatened by every time an industry that is destroying the world is threatened. So what can we do about it? These families, as individuals, as people, they're probably not evil. In fact, farmers at one point, I met a farmer from whom I rescued a cow, a dairy cow, who said, you know, I was going to retire a long time ago, but I always wondered, how was I going to feed America? So don't laugh, because he's serious. I mean, he was a 75-year-old farmer at the time that we rescued Angel, so he's 80 now. And for many years, this was how people ate. We didn't have factory farming. We didn't have consolidated forms of agriculture. And that is what Americans ate, and there wasn't a whole lot of impact, because the average American only ate about 10 pounds of cheese a year, only ate about 30 pounds of meat a year. We're talking like 100 years ago or so. It's different now. If we are going to feed America's appetite, the global appetite for meat and dairy, the only way we can do it is with CAFOs. We have to stuff as many animals as we can into these factories, into these factory farms, in order to feed our appetite for meat and dairy. That's the only sustainable way to do it. I'm telling you this, okay? The other choice is to go vegan. The other choice is to say no, because the locavore myth is a myth. The locavore myth is a myth because it feeds the 1% of the population that can afford to eat this meat and to drink this dairy. So when we talk about these families that are feeding America, they're feeding a very small percentage of wealthy Maronites and Sonoma County people that can afford to eat this way. Go tell someone who lives in an underserved community in the middle of some city in Chicago to be a locavore. That means eating at McDonald's. That's what a locavore means for most people in this country. They do not have access to clean water, good food, organic vegetables. They simply don't have it because our system has not been set up to provide organic, healthy food for the vast majority of people. And so we in liberal California, we in liberal Marin County, we must take charge of the situation. We must be at the helm of the parade that changes the food system to create equity for all. And the only way we can do it is to do away with this greenwashing, to do away with these myths, to do away with the forms of agriculture that is destroying the planet, people's health, and wildlife. Now, people often blame plant-based companies and vegans and activists for destroying the current dairy industry. Now, I want to tell you, Danone, a huge multi-billion-dollar French company, just shut down contracts with 30 dairies in the Northeast. Those 30 dairies, well, because they're consolidating. They're just going to have their big dairy, their giant dairy. Those 30 dairy families are now going to go out of business. These 30 dairy families are now going to need a different form of livelihood. So families all over, this is an inevitable situation. And the question is, how can we help those families? There are only 60 employees in all of Point Reyes. That's not very many. I'm sure we can find jobs for those 60 employees when these families move. And at Miyoko's, I have already offered jobs. No one's come to me, but we have offered those positions. I have a target on my back. The head of the California Dairy Lobby sent an email out to all dairy farmers in California to watch out for me. And one of my employees who's heading up the farm transition program that we have that's trying to help a California dairy farmer convert to growing crops. Now, we would never do that in Point Reyes National Seashore because this is our public land and it needs to be a park. But we are trying to show dairy farmers that there is another way. You can make money in another way. Do you know how much land it takes to grow crops to feed this country?
Half, 41%.
No, that's for animal agriculture. Okay. The crops grown in this country that actually go to feed human mouths is about the space of Illinois, Indiana, and half of Iowa. That is all the land we need. One of the arguments that you'll hear is we have to use Point Reyes National Seashore for grazing because you can't grow crops out here. Well, first of all, that's false. But we don't need to grow crops at all. We only need a very small amount of land in order to grow crops if we just ate crops, if we didn't cycle them through animals. And this is what we have to do. At some point, we have to decide what is the legacy we want to leave. Do we want to be do we want to be the species that exterminated every other species on this planet? No. This planet does not belong just to the human species. It belongs to all species, including the Thule elk. And every single species, yes, deserves to live. What we're doing today, it may or may not make a difference tomorrow, sadly. But we are a microcosm of a movement that is going to ripple across America. that will change how we treat all wild animals. We must tell the story to all non-believers, to non-vegans, that if they are wildlife animal lovers, they must stop consuming animal products. And that is how we can communicate to them. I love cows, and I want them to survive, but I want them to survive in much fewer numbers. If we stop breeding cows today, in about 20 years, there will be very few cows left on this planet. They are not a wild animal. They were bred to be who they are today. And we do not need them in these numbers. I will love the individual cows that I know. I love Louie, I love Angel, I loved Erica. And if I meet any other individual cows and I have a relationship with them, I will love them. But they do not belong here at Point Reyes National Seashore. And it's up to each and every single one of us to change the future for all living beings. Thank you.